What's up everyone, it's the Tyrant here. Welcome back to Exploring Halo, and today we're taking a look at the Halo 2 mission, Quarantine Zone, one of my favorite ones in the game. And so of course, since this takes place right after Sacred Icon, the first thing I wanted to see is if we could return to the previous mission. Now, no surprise here, of course, there is some of that mission already loaded. What did surprise me is if you actually walk through the wall to where you can get to the tunnel that initially brought you to this area, the tunnel's still there. You can actually go all the way up the tunnel, and when you get to the top, of course, there's nothing, which is no surprise, really. But yeah, so it's completely blank, but the tunnel's still there. That actually did impress me. A nice little attention to detail there by Bungie. So after that, I wanted to see how much of this mission I could skip simply by flying via using the blue trainer and also using assembly to speed things up a little bit. Now, one thing I want you to notice here is while I have to obviously go inside the structure to load the rest of the mission, look at the skybox. This mission is unique in the fact that the skybox changes several times over the course of the mission. Prior to this, I saw it change once, I think, in the mission Outskirts, but here it actually changes on multiple occasions as you get closer to the library. So from there, I did go ahead and go through the room and everything that you're supposed to with all the Sentinel Enforcers and whatnot. And when you get outside to the place where you sort of just travel in a downward spiral to where all the Flood rocket launcher guys are and everything and all the Flood-controlled Covenant vehicles, at this point, you can actually skip quite a bit ahead. Again, using the blue trainer, I went ahead and just wanted to see how far I could go. And as you can see, remember from the previous mission, we saw a Sentinel factory fall from the sky, and there it is. That's actually what it looks like. We go inside of this structure later on, but for now, this is what it looks like in full view from the air, which I think is pretty awesome. Now, you can only go but so far because this particular mission relies on a series of checkpoints. So I did need to go back and actually play the mission normally, a bit faster. But once I finally did, I decided to skip ahead once I loaded the final area in to see if I could get to the gondola early and if I could just go ahead and play the mission. Because, you know, there is a cutscene that takes place before you actually get on the gondola and activate it, and the time before that. Of course, it's an interaction between the Arbiter and Halfjaw. So once I actually got to the gondola, as you can see, there's no enemies in this last area here where there's usually Flood and Sentinels fighting each other. So I went ahead and I got to the gondola, and no surprise, there's no cutscene here because I skipped all the load points. You can hit the switch, and of course you can hear it activate, but nothing actually happens beyond that. So from here, I wanted to see if the next part of the mission was actually already loaded, which would make sense considering it's still a part of the same level. I can understand most of Sacred Icon not being there, but this is still a part of Quarantine Zone. So going ahead, you can actually clip through the opposite tunnel, and a lot of this part is surprisingly loaded in there. All the places where the Flood actually jump onto the gondola and attack you and your allies, that's all here. It does go in a little bit, but then once you actually try to go inside any of the other doors, the scenery stops there. It's pretty much just skybox again. Weirdly enough, the skybox here is just like the skybox at the beginning of the mission instead of the progressive one that it has going throughout the missions, which I thought was kind of interesting. But so you can go a little ways here, but that's about it. But here's the thing. What I wanted to see here is what about the other gondola stations, because there are two other ones. There's one where the humans launch, and then there's another one that we never see end up getting used. So I went to the human side first. Again, keep in mind, this is before any sort of cutscene has taken place, and the mission goes on just as normally. Going over here, I don't see the human gondola anywhere. It's not there unless you actually go inside the gondola station, and when you turn around, if you look at it at a certain angle, it suddenly appears. So if you don't look at it at this angle, it's completely invisible, and if you try to actually go on top of the gondola, it kills you. Sorry, Arbiter. So that one's not there. Now, if I go to the other side, There is another gondola station there inside the mountain, but there's no actual gondola in there at all. It's completely empty. That's not really much of a surprise there. Also, while I was out here, I wanted to see what was in the other tunnels. For the most part, the one on the left is completely empty. This is the one that's completely unused. Again, that's not surprising. Now, the one on the right does have some of it loaded as well. Keep in mind, throughout the gondola ride, you for the most part, you actually have full visual of the human gondola. You're basically trying to beat them to the library, which I think is kind of cool. Now, also in this area, what I noticed is that the Emberclad is on the other side. It's actually hovering above the human gondola where it originally launches from. Now, I didn't know right off the bat if this was going to be part of the skybox or not until I took a closer look at it. And yes, it is a solid object, but the question is it one of those flat objects or is it something that we can actually reach? And so I went ahead and started heading towards the Emberclad. And when I got up here, yes, it is a fully sized model of the Emberclad. It is completely and totally there. That actually surprised me a little bit. I didn't think I'd be able to get to the Emberclad, but you can actually take it a step further than that, and then it doesn't despawn you when you get close to it. You can actually go on top of it. Now, when I tested it out to see if it was a solid object, I accidentally killed Arbiter on that one. So sorry again, Arbiter. This has not been your mission here. But yes, the Emberclad is actually there. Now, I know a lot of you were going to ask me next to see if I could see if Sergeant Johnson and Miranda Keys were on the human gondola after it launched. So obviously I had to play through the mission again so I could hit all the load points. And once I got to that, here's what I found out, and this is a little bit bizarre. So we've seen this before in these exploration videos. When you're on a track, such as the gondola is, you will move even if you're airwalking. Regardless, you will move in the same direction as whichever direction your gondola is going in. So this made things a little bit difficult, but I did finally get to the gondola, and no surprise, there are no human forces on there. Obviously, they didn't need to be there, but I figured it would have been a nice little attention to detail, but no, they're not there at all. So you can actually take this up quite a bit of ways. You can look on the other side to see the Covenant gondola. When you get to the top, I thought this would actually take you to the library. It does not. It just despawns at some point, and I guess technically respawns where the library docking station is, but it completely despawns, and it just tossed me off. This is 3 times for you, Arbiter. I'm sorry. Sorry, Arbiter. This is definitely not your mission. But anyway, so after this, there was one final thing that I wanted to see, and that was to see if there was any way that I could actually explore the library itself. In the vanilla portion of the mission, essentially all you do is when you get to the library, you can explore a little bit of the outer part, but if you try to go inside the main chamber, the cutscene starts. But I decided to see if I could simply walk through the air, walk through the wall, and just drop straight into that part of the mission, the main chamber of the library. And yes, you can, as long as you beat your gondola there. And again, you have to be a little bit careful here because the gondola is still moving, so it's still pushing you along. So I waited for the gondola to park before I actually started exploring. And yep, you can walk all around here. There's actually a separate chamber that I'll show you in a bit, way back in the on the other side that mirrors the side that you're currently on. It's just very dimly lit. But next I wanted to see, okay, well, let's see how much of this library is actually rendered. So I went ahead and started going up towards the ceiling, and there are multiple levels, just like in the regular library. This does feel like it's smaller than the one from Halo Combat Evolved, but you can go all the way to the top floor. It's a solid object. It's not an illusion like the Emberclad, and you can walk all around here. There's no doors or anything, but this is a full structure. You can actually go all inside and explore as much of this as you want to. Now, of course, I know what else you're probably thinking. What about the bottom of the library? Is there a kill-death barrier there, or can you actually reach it? And the answer is yes, you can. This took me a little bit of time because fall damage, turning it off in assembly doesn't always work, which is kind of strange. So it took me a little bit of time, but finally I got down there, and this is basically where Tartarus pushes Arbiter with his gravity hammer, the Fist of Rut, which I think is pretty cool. So this is where Arbiter falls. I'm guessing that we're standing on a door that the Gravemind can actually access. That's the only explanation I can see from here. But this is what the bottom of the library looks like, and I'll show you the other corridor as well. One other thing I wanted to point out here was that if you do this, if you try to clip into the library early, you can still finish the mission, but it has a weird effect on the cutscene afterwards. And I'm gonna close the video and then I'll show that to you. But essentially, it takes out a lot of the visual effects, like the gunfire effects and the effects from Tartarus's gravity hammer, and even some of the music, which is kind of strange, but I hope it's something that you guys enjoy, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this video. What your opinions are, you can let me know in the comment section below, and I want to take a moment to thank you all for taking the time out of your busy day to sit down and watch this video. I really do hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, I hope you'll consider subscribing for more great content right here on MythicTyrant.com. Thank you all so much for watching. Have a wonderful week. I'll catch you all right back here next time, and as always, I'm the Tyrant, signing off.
You know, your father never asked me for help either.
The index is secure.
Mackenzie, Perez, how's our exit? You hear me, Marines? We got trouble. How you doing?
Sergeant, stay down! Johnson, you all right? Johnson!
Excellent work, Arbiter. The Hierarchs will be pleased. The Icon is my responsibility. What's your responsibility? Now it is mine. A bloody fate awaits you and the rest of your incompetent race. And I, Tartarus, chieftain of the brutes, will send you to it. When the prophets learn of this, they will take your head when they learn.